Alan Matthieson Turing was a 20th-century British scientist and mathematician. He is best known for his work in decoding the Enigma machine and in computers. On the 23rd of June, 1912, Alan Turing was born in Maida Vale, London, England. He showed incredible intellect and became particularly interested in math and science while at Sherborne School. Later, he enrolled in King's College at Cambridge University at Cambridge, England. He studied there from 1931 to 1934 and was elected a fellow to the school upon his graduation for his work in probability where he proved the central limit theorem.
One of Alan Turing's first achievements involves the int-sky-dunks problem. The int-sky-dunks problem was an attempt to prove mathematical statements with a mathematical system. In his book on computable numbers, with an application to the int-sky-dunks problem, Turing proved, along with a person called Alonzo Church, that the int-sky-dunks problem was essentially impossible and that no formal system of arithmetic had an effective decision method. In Alan Turing's book, not only did he disprove the int-sky-dunks problem, but also made the Turing machine. The Turing machine is an abstract computing machine that contains the fundamental principles of the digital computer, the very same computers that are used today. The Church-Turing thesis claims that everything humanly computable can be done by the Turing machine. In 1936, Turing proved that every lambda-definable function is computable by the Turing machine and vice versa.
Turing studied mathematics and cryptology at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, New Jersey for 2 years. After receiving his PhD, he joined the Government Code and Cipher School, a British code-breaking organization, as a part-timer. When World War II rolled around, Turing moved to the organization's wartime headquarters at Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire. Between 1939 to 1940, Alan Turing and others developed the bombe, a code-breaking machine that was related, but different, to the Polish-made bomba, which became useless when Germans changed their operating procedures in May 1940. The bombe and bomba were used to decipher the Enigma machine, a machine that used a polyalphabetic cipher that scrambled the alphabet constantly, used by the Germans. However, the Enigma machine could only change a letter instead of keeping it the same. For example, the letter A can't just stay as A. Along with frequently used words and phrases, the bombe was able to decode the Enigma machine. But before we proceed any further, a brief lesson on code breaking. The most basic cipher would be a letter shift. All letters in the alphabet shift a certain number to the right. For example, if the shift was 1, then it would become B, B would become C, and so on, until Z becomes A. This type of cryptography is not used by governments and other people trying to keep a secret, as it would only take a maximum of 25 tries to break it. A harder message to break would be one encoded with the Vigener cipher. This involves using a keyword to determine how much to shift each letter. If the keyword was math, for example, the first letter would be shifted by 13 because M is the 13th letter in the alphabet. The next letter would be shifted by 1, because A is the first letter of the alphabet. This process continues for each letter, with the number of shifts being the position of the letter in the keyword in the alphabet. This is an even more difficult cipher to break, as there are many different combinations of words that could be keywords. In order to crack this, computers separate the encoded message into each of the separate parts. This means that, if we look at the example above, since the keyword is 4 letters, every first letter in a set of 4 would go in one group, every second letter would go into a second group, and so on. The computer then does a frequency test to see which letter appears the most in each set. It uses the letter distribution in each language to see how many shifts would be likely. This process is repeated for each group. However, there is one way to make a message undecipherable unless the recipient has the key. If the keyword is as long as the message itself, then there is no letter frequency to base the deciphering off of. The hardest Visioner cipher to solve would be a code message with the keyword being one letter less than the message itself. It would take many tries, but even this can be solved.
After World War II, Alan Turing was recruited into the National Physical Laboratory. There, he designed the Automatic Computing Engine, ACE, which is regarded as the first electronic, stored program, all-purpose, digital computer despite never actually being built. A smaller version called Pilot Model ACE was built instead because the people back at the NPL thought the original ACE was too complicated. Nevertheless, his design for the ACE and his abstract Turing machine had an extremely important impact on computers even to this day. For example, the ACE influenced the designs of the English Electric Deuce, the Bendix G15 from America, and other computer models.
Alan Turing was involved in artificial life and is even considered its founding father along with modern cognitive science. He was one of the pioneers who hypothesized that the cortex brain is like a digital computing machine, theorizing that the human brain at birth is just an unorganized machine that, through training, becomes a universal machine or something of the like. Lastly, he made the Turing test, a way to determine whether or not a machine was thinking or not.
Let's take a simple example. There are three people, A, B, and C. A and C are bad chess players, while B operates the machine just to make sure it's running smoothly. B won't have any influence over the machine's responses. C will play a game of chess between either person A or the computer. However, C will not know which person he's playing against. If C cannot correctly guess which he's playing against, or if he incorrectly guesses each time, randomly picking between the two, then according to Turing, the machine could think. The more modern form of this, called the imitation game, involves a man and a woman going into separate rooms and giving typed responses to questions given by volunteers or guests. However, the man is trying to trick the guests into thinking he is the woman, and the woman is trying to trick them into thinking she is a man. They do this by using their responses. The second part of the game involves replacing the man with the computer that will generate its own responses to the questions. If the guests guess wrongly as often with two people as they do with the machine and a person, then it's reasonable to assume that they are unable to tell the difference between a man and a machine. And it could also be reasoned that the machine is able to think and produce its own responses without having responses already made within the computer. And so this was the basis for the Turing test. Now, the real question is this a person talking, or is this a machine talking? You be the judge of that.
In 1952, Alan Turing reported to the police that he had been robbed. He admitted that the perpetrator was his boyfriend, 19-year-old Arnold Murray. At the time, homosexuality was illegal, so Alan Turing was arrested, charged with gross indecency, and given two options: either get hormone treatment for libido reduction or imprisonment. He chose the former, and endured 12 months of the treatment. Afterwards, he was barred from working government communications headquarters, the government's post-war code-breaking center, and spent the rest of his career in Manchester, where he was appointed to a special readerships for the theory of computing in May 1953. In the 7th of June 1954, Alan Turing was discovered dead in his bed. There are several reasons why, but the most known was suicide by ingesting an apple laced in cyanide. In 2009, Prime Minister Gordon Brown apologized, on the behalf of the British government, for Turing's treatment. 4 years later, Queen Elizabeth II gave Turing a royal pardon. In the 20th of October 2016, the British government announced a law that would posthumously pardon homosexual and bisexual men previously convicted. It has been called Turing's Law.